All right, well, let's get started. It is 12:01 Eastern Time, and thanks to everybody who has taken the time to join us this afternoon to talk about proposal preparation and submission process for the ARNOVA 2019 conference. My name is Jodi Benenson. I'm the chair of the Early Scholar section. I'm going to be facilitating what is definitely going to be a fantastic conversation today because we have our 2019 conference co-chairs here. We have Brenda Bushouse and Lindsey McDougle, who are going to be able to answer all of your conference proposal questions. Just in brief, a little bit about the Early Scholar section through ARNOVA. We're a section that really serves as a resource and a space for early career scholars, whether you are a doctoral student, junior faculty member, a non-tenured faculty member, an adjunct faculty member, a master's student. Early Scholars kind of captures however you feel like you may be fitting in this early scholar space at this time in your career and are fairly new to the scholarly community that is ARNOVA. I am the chair of the Early Scholars section. We do have a leadership team, and we have a variety of webinars and events every year, including at the conference. And I am currently an assistant professor at the University of Nebraska, Omaha. And I'm going to let our panelists here introduce themselves as well.
Hello, I'm Brenda Bushouse. I'm at the University of Massachusetts, and last year I was co-chair with Mary Kay Gugerty, and this year I'm fortunate to be working with Lindsey McDougle. And so we are the ones that arrange for the review of all the submissions. So we're going to be talking about that with you today. I just have to say, I started attending ARNOVA when I was a doctoral student, and then I got started in my career, and I think since 2003 I haven't missed many ARNOVAs, and if I did miss them, it was because I was on sabbatical or something. So I think this is an amazing conference, and it's when many of us feel like when we come to ARNOVA, we're home. It's our scholarly home. So I hope it becomes that for you too.
Hello, everybody. My name is Lindsey McDougle. I'm at Rutgers University, Newark, and this is the first year that I will be co-chairing the conference, and I'm co-chairing with Brenda, of course. And like Brenda, I've been attending the ARNOVA conference for quite a while. So I started attending as a doctoral student in 2007, and I have not missed an ARNOVA conference since then. So Brenda said, I do hope that you also will.
Great. Well, I also we're going to start off by asking Brenda and Lindsey to provide a brief overview of the different types of proposals one can submit through the ARNOVA submission system, and and for the conference. You may see in the call for proposals that you can submit a paper, a panel. Like, what are those? What are the differences between those types of things, and what is maybe the best proposal for me to submit at this time? And if you have any follow-up questions that may not get answered, just feel free to include those in the chat, and I'll make sure to ask those to our panelists at the end of the conversation.
Yeah, so before we get into the actual types of proposal submissions that they are, as I said, I've been attending since a doctoral student. I would like to say that attending the ARNOVA conference is a really great opportunity to network with scholars in the field, as well as to get feedback on your research. And so when I started attending the ARNOVA conference, I actually met a scholar who was working on a project similar to mine, Sumita Handy, and I networked with her after the presentation. And from our meeting, that one brief ARNOVA conference, we stayed in contact, and she asked me to do a postdoc out at her institution, University of Pennsylvania, which I did. And from there, we stayed in contact ever since. And so I really hope that you consider the ARNOVA conference a chance to propel your career, some of you, or just to gain valuable feedback on your work. It really is a great opportunity to get involved in the field. And so with that, we can then go into the different types of that there are for the conference.
Yeah, and I think Lindsey's experience, I mean, many of us engage with senior scholars as junior scholars, and it was really important for our careers. Another reason why I love ARNOVA. people tend to be very accessible. So we wanted to talk with you about the call for papers. Every year there's a theme for the conference, and this year Lindsey and I drafted one in which we really want people to grapple with this polarized world that we're living in. And so we have a description of it in which, if your work is focusing on polarization or dealing with dichotomies and the dualisms, and we have a one-pager description of it on the website, and it's showing right now on your screen. And I think my mouse, oh, there we go. My mouse control is a little delayed right there. So I don't know, Jodi, you may want to take that back. Yep. But it's on the website, and I encourage you to read it. And so if you have research that relates to this theme, it's nonprofits and philanthropy in a polarized world, speaking truth to power and using power to speak truth. If you have research related to that, submit to the conference track. But rest assured that if your research does not relate to the theme, you have plenty of other options. So we have all these different tracks, and the conference theme is just one of them. And so as you'll see, there's a couple, we wanted to note some of the changes. If you've come to the conference last year, there's a few changes of the conference themes that we want to point out. So if you're in GITA, the Common Interest Group specifically, look at the Civil Society, Community, and Grassroots Association track. That may be where you want to submit. We have a new methods track. So if your work is specifically focusing on developing methods, it's titled Networks and Methodology, submit there. That's a new one. We also, last year we had a humanities track. This year we decided to rename it History, Religion, and Arts. So if you work in the humanities or you have any research related to history, religion, or arts, please submit there. And finally, I wanted to say that we've created an open track. So if your research doesn't fit into any of the tracks that are listed there, submit it to the open track, because what Lindsey and I are going to do is we are going to review all those proposals, and we also look at all the papers and panels, all the proposals. We review all of them. And so if you submit to the open track, we're going to look at all the accepted panels and plug your paper in where it best fits. Okay, and that's going to give us some feedback about whether or not the tracks are aligning with people's research. And so I don't know, if there's any questions on chat related to tracks. I guess we'll save things for question and answer.
Yeah,
Jodi?
I might ask one really quickly. So what if I submit something, let's say I'm really interested in submitting to the public policy, law, regulation, and advocacy track, but the people who may be reviewing my proposals may not necessarily feel like it fits into that track. What happens at that point? But they may feel like it may fit in another track. How do they deal with that?
Yeah, so there's a rating system. So if you're a track chair, you rate it 5 as absolute accept, 4 probably accept, 3 we usually recommend for a poster, and 2 and 1 are in the reject categories. But another option is if they read it and say, hey, this is a really good proposal, but we don't think it fits here, they send it back to the co-chairs. And then so after all the panels are put together for the different tracks, then Lindsey and I go over all the ones that were switched, like said, oh, this doesn't fit in this track, let's put it here. And we'll also have all the ones submitted to open track, and then we make a decision about where it best fits.
Great.
Mm-hmm. So do we want to move into talking about the different types of presentations or types of proposals? So on the website, if we want to, the types of presentation and proposals. So there's a traditional paper, and Lindsey, jump in here. The traditional paper is where you submit it in individually. It can be co-authored, but it's a paper, or you put together a panel of 4 papers. And typically you want to have a chair and preferably a discussant as well. And so if you've got a group of scholars who have research that hangs together, you could put together a panel. Lindsey, do you have any advice for putting together panels?
Well, in putting together a panel, I would get all of the papers panel are coherent and that they form a cohesive topic for the panel. And so you wouldn't want to put together a panel where no one knew the topic of the panel would be. So you want to ensure that the papers have a consistent theme to them and that the panel would be a very cohesive one.
Yeah, and as an early scholar, one of the, let's say that you are more senior scholar is doing research that aligns with yours. One of the things you can do is invite that senior scholar onto the panel. Or you might want to invite that senior scholar to be the discussant or the chair. And that way you're trying to build a panel that has topics that hang together, but it also can be a way to showcase your work to more senior scholars that you want to be aware of it. So,
yeah, and I would say as a scholar or a PhD student, also don't think that you're not capable of putting together a panel either. So last year, one of my PhD students actually did a panel on experimental methods in nonprofit and philanthropic studies, and asked the senior scholar to be a discussant or to lead the panel. So early scholars can definitely, papers and posters are not the only things that you can submit to. You can certainly organize a panel.
Mm-hmm. So Lightning Research Roundtables are another presentation venue, and it's only the 3rd year that we've been doing them, so they're still a bit experimental. But the idea behind this is that it's a really provocative idea, and there's going to be people who are experts in their field. Tends to be more senior scholars, but people who have a lot of knowledge, and they impart it very quickly in 5 to 7 minute presentations, these lightning presentations. And so it's very focused on a provocative question. Okay, and there's a very limited number of those that are accepted. And then there's a colloquium. This is one where there's no papers, but it's a group of people who have expertise, and they're going to have a conversation on a single topic. And we like these to be related to the conference theme, but if you've got something that is really important, you know, submit it. It's usually around 2 to 4 presenters on a colloquium. And so they present, and then there's time for audience interaction with Q&A, more so than typically is for a panel, where you have 4 papers being presented, and the Q&A time tends to be a bit shorter. And then finally, we have posters. So if you've got a research idea, but you don't think it's going to be developed well enough to be a full-blown paper, you want to submit it as a poster. And the submissions for the posters are a bit later. They're in the summer versus the paper submissions, the call that's out right now. Okay.
Great.
So one of the things we wanted to talk about is how to write a successful proposal. And that's really important. And you know, I can tell you, after being track chairs for years and now being the 2nd year co-chair, it is so important that you put that time into the proposal so that the reviewers can look at it, know your question, know where it fits in the literature, can see your methods, can get a good sense about what data, if you're using data, you know, do you have your data? What is it going to take for you to finish it? So they can assess whether or not your paper is going to be done by the time of the conference. And so writing that proposal is really important, and to spend that time on it. So Lindsey and I spent time revising this, how to submit a proposal. And I don't know if we can get that up on screen, but we put it, but there's guidance on how to put it together. And so there's a preparation checklist that you're going to want to look at in the proposal system. And so we have a abstract, a 100-word abstract, and that's going to be what the reviewers are first going to see. And then they're going to read this 1,000-page description. This is for a paper presentation. There we go. So if you look,
1,000-word description.
What was that?
1,000-word description.
Yeah, 1,000-word description. So we put down A to G.
Oh, don't submit 1,000.
There's A to G now of things that you want to cover. So and that's to help guide people. So you want to make sure you focus on each one of those, and that important to have that problem or issue. It's got to have a really clear research question. And then B, its relationship to the knowledge of the field. That's critically important to show that you know the literature and where your research question fits. And then, as I said before, the methodological approach, findings if you have them, and then the contribution your work makes to the field. I want to direct your attention to G, and that's the 3 keywords in order of priority. This is new for this year. We had keywords before, but we're really using them this year. So the track chairs are going to look at those keywords if this is a paper presentation, and they're going to use those keywords to put your paper into a panel. So put some careful thought into what those 3 keywords are and what the priority are for each one. So there's an example in there. But this is kind of a bit of a different way than we've done it before, because we want to make sure that people's work is getting placed in the appropriate panel. Particularly if you're doing something like the examples that we have in there is like, if your geographic focus is most important, list the country or region first. If the paper is focused on transnational or international, list that first. If it's the substantive, do that first. You know, if it's the methods, do that first. So just make sure that you're emphasizing what it is that the key contributions are for the paper. And so that's just really important to make it as clear as you can and to cover A through G. Each one of those. You can even put an underline for each one of those to make it really, really clear for the reviewer.
Yeah, and I would highlight also F, the bibliographic references. And so you don't have to include a full list of references that will be included in your paper, but there should be something that is representative of the reference that you'll be using, at least to let the reviewers know that your literature is grounded in previous work. And so that would also help them to evaluate and assess the quality of your proposal.
And so we get to, and then I'll echo that, that's really important. So last year we had some submissions that were clearly written for a disciplinary conference. Let's say it was political, we'll just use my discipline. It was written for a political science conference. And so it's clear somebody probably submitted it to APSA, but they didn't take the time to adapt the proposal to reflect the ARNOVA conference. And so really focusing on the nonprofit literature, the voluntary action literature, and situating it appropriately. And so you have to think about the conference that you're applying to and who that audience is. It's really important.
What are your thoughts on sharing the proposal, right? Something that, helps me, for instance, is sometimes just maybe sharing the proposal with somebody who is not in my direct, research area, to make sure that it is something, clear and also, concise, but also to make sure that, I'm explaining things in a way that maybe somebody who may not, maybe I study philanthropy, but maybe, somebody who studies more, I don't know, volunteerism or public policy may understand. Do you have any just thoughts or suggestions around kind of, how people may want to, share drafts with colleagues or friends or people, who may not necessarily be in their field? Is this something you've done before, or do you have any recommendations there?
Yeah, I would just say beyond even the ARNOVA conference, I would recommend sharing your work to get feedback on it as good practice. way that you know it's not just in your own head, that other people can understand what you're trying to convey. I would be a huge advocate in terms of sharing your proposal to get feedback, to make sure that it's understandable.
Yeah, especially thinking about some of those bibliographic or the literature, right? You know, if you maybe want to share your proposal with a senior scholar, but you know, it's possible, and this is, you know, happened to all of us. You know, maybe we left out a key scholar, and maybe that person who's actually reviewing your proposal, right? So just, you know, making sure that you're you know, communicating with senior scholars in your field or in your departments, or things like that as well. I think just sometimes those omissions happen, and you know, they may happen anyway. But just recognizing that, you know, just starting as early as possible to prepare your proposal, I think.
And I think it's important with ARNOVA, we're a multidisciplinary scholarly organization, and so what might make total sense to me as a political scientist, there might not be, like a sociologist might draw from a different literature. So I think with ARNOVA, particularly sharing it with other nonprofit scholars is a really good idea, because we come from so many different disciplines.
Well, thank you for providing such clear guidelines as, you know, we go forward and create our proposals. Many of you maybe already have drafts of proposals, so this could be just a nice way to kind of check what you're doing, or maybe you haven't started yet, and this is some very helpful guidance. Again, this is available on the ARNOVA website, but we also have, you know, 2 handouts attached to this webinar. If you haven't had a chance to see those as yet, you can actually see the theme and call for proposals that Brenda and Lindsey were just talking about, as well as the proposal submission guidelines. And you can see that, you know, there are proposal submission guidelines not just for papers, but also for panel presentations and for lightning research roundtable proposals, and for colloquiums and poster presentations. And so thank you for putting together this 12-page comprehensive guide that I think will be helpful for people. I do have a couple of follow-up questions, but I do want to just spend a little bit of time giving Holly Titus, who is the Associate Director of ARNOVA, just an opportunity to talk a little bit about kind of, okay, so let's say, you know, you've submitted one of these proposals, you've followed all the rules, you've done A through G, everything's gone well, and your proposal has been accepted. You know, attending conferences can be expensive, and we want to make sure that everybody's aware of some opportunities for awards and scholarships that ARNOVA provides, so that when you're thinking about how you're going to pay for your trip to San Diego, you will be aware of these opportunities. So Holly, we wanted to invite you to just share a little bit about these.
Thank you so much, Jodi. Thank you all for attending the webinar as well. There was a lot of great information that was shared. And again, as Jodi mentioned, all this information is available on the website as well as in the handouts that are provided. And we did want to take a couple moments just to talk through, like Jodi said, how we support our members, especially after you've done all the hard work of submitting and getting accepted for a proposal, that you actually are able to attend and we can support that. So just for some context, each year we have a number of scholarships for both travel and then some programs to support our members in attending the conference. And last year we had over 80 scholarship award recipients, which were able to attend the conference based on some of our scholarship funding that we do offer. So as Jodi pulled up the webpage there, you'll also see the awards that are open for submissions currently. Please take a moment to look through the awards. We do offer a number of research awards for all of the work that our members do, so we can recognize them. And so if you are interested, that information is there. But what I want to focus on for the next maybe 3 minutes quickly is the scholarships portion. So we do have, like I said, a number of scholarships and programs that we consider scholarships that do support your attendance at the conference. And the first one of those is the Emerging Scholars Award. So this is really, again, earmarked for those emerging scholars in the field. Let's say you've got your paper accepted, you're getting ready to present. You can apply for these awards before the conference, and then we will let you know if you've received the award within a month or to a month and a half prior to that conference. So the Emerging Scholars Award, this does provide conference registration, complimentary, and then we also provide you a plaque to recognize your award recipient. The Doctoral Fellows Program, this is a great opportunity for those that may have already defended their thesis or will be preparing to do so. So we've got two different seminars. So again, that Seminar A, it is a day-long workshop on Wednesday. So you can apply. There are some criteria depending on which seminar that you're selected into. We do offer up to 30 recipients in this program. So Seminar A, again, is if you've already defended your thesis, some of those next step pieces, and also a really collegial forum for you to interact with faculty in the field as well as your colleagues to get some feedback on your paper and presentations and kind of next steps for that thesis. Seminar B is if you're getting ready or preparing your proposal, you again have the opportunity to network with leading faculty who lead that seminar, as well as participate with some of your colleagues that are going through the similar process. And then there's two other programs that we offer. The Graduate Diversity Scholars and Leaders Professional Development Workshop that is also on a Wednesday prior to the conference. This does provide not only conference registration, but hotel. So, and I should have mentioned that for the doctoral program as well. So because these are full day-long programs, we know you'll be traveling. It does come with a little bit more substantive support in terms of helping you with the hotel stay and the cost of that during those programs. The Undergraduate Diversity Scholars Workshop, if you are an undergraduate and have to be very excited about listening about what you could do attending the conference, I would point you in this direction for our workshop again on Wednesday prior to the conference. This does include as well conference registration and then hotel. And last but not least, conference scholarships and travel grants. This is our largest program. So there are two different ways that we support our members is, again, we try to cover as much as possible to help support your trip to San Diego. The conference and scholarships and travel grants, we try to make this application as simple as possible. So if you go onto our website and you look through these programs and you specifically are looking at the conference scholarships and travel grants, there are two types where one will cover your conference registration fee. And then we have up to a limited amount, it's usually about 20 each year, that we provide not only the conference registration, but also $250 that you would receive upon arriving at the conference to help you with any incidentals or to help you with that lodging expense. So I would recommend, again, looking through these program support opportunities. And I do want to mention that if you are not already currently an ARNOVA member, please go ahead and check out our membership options. We do have a lot of different variable options. We have income levels, we have student levels. We try to make this as affordable as possible for our membership. So in order to apply for these scholarships and grants, you do need to be a member of ARNOVA. So I just wanted to first mention that. And if you have any detailed questions regarding any of the scholarship or grant opportunities as you look through them, please feel free to contact me directly and we're more than happy to help.
Great, thanks, Holly. As I mentioned earlier, if you have any specific questions about, what Holly just talked about, or what Brenda and Lindsey have discussed regarding the proposal submission process, please feel free to type them into the chat, and we'll make sure to get those answered. I do have a couple of questions that were submitted to me prior to the webinar for those who were interested in asking questions. So I just wanted to maybe start off by asking some of those. One thing that was noticed on the materials for the conference was that there are restrictions around kind of how many times you can present at the ARNOVA conference. So, can a person, for instance, serve as a co-author for a conference paper, but maybe not necessarily present, and do posters play into that? What are the essential requirements around how many times a person can present at the conference?
Lindsey, you want to take that? Or
Sure. So we put in place that a person sent more than 2 times at the conference. A lot of this was put in place for often senior researchers who would be on the conference program 5 or 6 times, it became very difficult to put them into sessions because their times would often overlap. So we did put in place a limit that no person should be presenting more than 2 times at the conference. And so by 2 times, ideally, that's you won't be the person who is the designated presenter. So when you go into the submission system, you'll be able to mark whether or not you are a non-presenter, or if you are a presenter, marked as a presenter. We would prefer that you not mark yourself as a presenter more than twice, so that there are no difficulties in scheduling each of your presentations that you'll do.
Anything you'd like to add, Brenda?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. You can be, in terms of presentations, you know, 2 presentations, that's the limit. You should not be on the program more than twice in a presenting capacity. But if you're a discussion or a chair, that you can do that as much as you want, really. So that it only applies to your submissions and panels, colloquies, lightning research roundtables. You know, it's 2 in those capacities. But we would love it if you're volunteer to be chairs or discussants of as many panels as you want.
And this also, though, doesn't mean that you cannot more than 2 papers for consideration for the conference, but when you accept that you will present at the conference, then the ideal is that you will accept that you will present more than twice. So if you wanted to submit 10 conference proposals, that's perfectly fine. There's no limit to how many you can submit, but then you can only be accepted to present 2.
Great, thank you. We have some really great questions that have been coming in throughout the webinar, so I want to make sure to answer some of those. You know, the first question is really around kind of the different life cycles that a paper is in, and recognizing, you know, when is it appropriate to submit to the conference? So this person specifically said, this is my first time submitting a paper, and I'm not sure what the reviewers expect in terms of the deadline in April in terms of the results section. So the plan is to start analyzing the data in the summer. So this person may not have a results section by April, but is it okay if they submit, you know, an abstract for the conference by April with the expectation, I imagine, that those results will be available after the summer and during the conference?
Absolutely. Absolutely submit that paper. What the reviewers want to be able to see is that you're actually going to be able to finish the analysis and write that results section before the conference. So you need to provide the evidence that here are my data, you know, honestly state what's the status, you know, do you already have the data? Do you have to, are you collecting the data? Are you cleaning the data? In terms of results, you can say where you think this is going to go, and that's why we have that part that says contribution. What you think if your findings aren't available yet, it's fine to say that, but then say what you think your contribution is going to be.
Yeah.
So emphasize.
And so you have to. So we said. And so we said that the conference proposal is 1,000 words, right? So 1,000 words may prima facie seem like a lot of words, but think about a actual NVSQ article, which is 8,000 words. So in relation, a conference proposal is actually much, much, much shorter. So you have to be succinct in what you include. If you have something that you want to present, maybe your dissertation research, where you have to go out into the Amazon and interview people, and you have not even started yet, the chances that your proposal or your research will be completed by the time the conference comes around is probably not that high. So you want to give a very realistic, you know, time frame of where you are to your research that allows the reviewers to adequately assess the suitability of your proposal for the conference.
Great, thank you. The next question is about conference abstracts and just how they're shared. So the question, there's 2 questions here. The first is, how is the abstract included with the proposal used? And second, is that included in the conference program?
First question. So the first part of that is that there's track chairs assigned for each track, and they are going to read that abstract. And if the abstract is really well written, that may give them enough information to say, okay, that this makes me, think this is really going to be a really good paper. So it's really important, just like when you're writing a journal article, that abstract is carefully written to describe the research. And then you go into that 1,000 word more in-depth analysis. So the track chairs read both of those. Okay. And then if there are papers that are 3s, 2s, or 1s, or ones that have been transferred from one track to another, then Lindsey and I read those. And we read them very carefully. But they are not shared beyond that. So in the conference program, there is no abstract. It's just a title. So it's important to have a good title and a descriptive title.
Great. The next question is about this. This may be for you, Holly. The question is, can doctoral students in their final stage, like being on the job market this fall, apply for the Emerging Scholar Award?
Yes. So in order to apply for the Emerging Scholar Award, you do have to have a paper accepted. So this is one of the great first steps that you join the webinar. Thank you for joining. And if you do have a paper accepted, and you are eligible to apply for that award?
The answer is yes. First, get a paper accepted and then apply for the Emerging Scholar Award.
Correct.
Great. The next question is about previous research. So if a person presented a poster at the last conference, is it possible to now submit a paper for the same topic? Or does it need to be a different research question or paper each year?
I think the question was about if they submitted a poster and then wanted to turn that poster around into a paper. Was that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly reasonable. That is the purpose of having a poster session, is so that you can then develop that poster into a fully formed paper based on the feedback that you get from the poster. People come around and look at it. So that would be the ideal, that you take your poster and then develop the research and then come back and submit it as a paper. So that will be totally legitimate. What would not be legitimate is to do the same paper or the same presentation that you did last year and resubmit it this year. That you cannot do, or should not do, rather, I should say.
Not do. You want the research to progress.
Right. And what if I'm conflicted about, whether or not to submit a poster or a paper? What advice would you have for me at this stage in my research?
It all depends on when you think you're going to be able to complete that research. So if you think that you can complete that research project and have a well-written paper by the time of the conference, then submit as a paper. If you have an idea about research and maybe you have a research design, but you're still trying to figure out where your data are going to come from or how you're going to do it, and you've got a lot of commitments and you may not be able to get that finished by the conference, then submit as a poster. It's a really great, when you have a poster and you put out that research design, people come by, read it, give you feedback. So if you really want some feedback on a design, posters are the way to go.
Great, thank you. We also just got some additional insight about abstracts that I just want to make sure to share, that abstracts do show up in the online program. So that's just something to consider. So to Brenda's point, make sure your title's great, and you of course you want your abstract to be great too, because there's also a summary or a catalog of research of all the papers presented at the conference that is posted to the ARNOVA website for members to access. So if your paper is accepted, right, that is when it sounds like the abstract will be visible. So just, and again, that is just something to be aware of when you are putting your initial abstracts together. Now, the great thing about this conversation so far is that it's been really positive and really upbeat and really kind of, suggesting that, hey, like it's like it's, if you put together a really great abstract and proposal, it's likely that your proposal, may get accepted, right, to the conference. But there's also the possibility that it may not get accepted for the conference this year. So if for some reason, my paper does not get accepted, or my poster does not get accepted, or something does not get accepted this year, let's start maybe with the papers first. What would you recommend to somebody who's still really interested in attending the ARNOVA conference if my paper doesn't get accepted?
I want to make sure I understand the question. Is the question, your paper wasn't accepted, but you still want to attend the conference, which you absolutely can do, and we encourage you to attend whether or not you're presenting. I'd encourage you to volunteer to be a discussion or a chair. Or is the question, what do I do with that proposal if it's been rejected?
That's probably the better question. Yeah, so what should I do? I put all this work into this proposal. What do you recommend, especially if I want to still carry on this research, or I'm carrying on this research right now?
So Lindsey and I are requiring that track chairs, if they reject a paper, that they have to provide a reason to give some feedback. And if somebody gets that feedback and they still don't feel like they understand why, then they can contact me and Lindsey to look at it and provide them with feedback. But we're going to put the pressure on the track chairs to justify their decisions. And the most common things are that, unclear research question, not situated in the literature, the methods aren't clear, or we don't think that this paper can possibly be finished by the conference. Those are the main reasons. So if you spent the time to develop your proposal and your project is where it needs to be, then, it's more likely that you're going to be accepted.
Right, and whereas it wouldn't be appropriate to present the same conference presentation multiple years in a row, it would be acceptable to take a rejected proposal and take that feedback and turn it around for the next year. So if you wanted to continue along with your research, you could use that feedback to help you for years to come.
Great.
And I know a lot of times, I just wanted to say too, I know a lot of times that students are working to show that they are participating in the conference in order for their universities to provide them with resources to attend. So if your paper is rejected and you still would like to attend the conference, then what Brenda was mentioning earlier about asking to volunteer with the conference would be a way to show your institution that you are a participant in ARNOVA or in the conference, would be another way to go to still attend the conference even though your paper has been rejected. Or to submit a poster session, which opens in July.
Great, thank you. And I just pulled up the conference website here. Everything that you saw in that PDF is available on the website. And I encourage you to kind of like at least before you, like the day you plan to submit your proposal, just spend a little bit of time getting to know the website. I know that just you need to, for instance, create a login name and those types of things. So don't wait until the last minute. You can see here all the specific dates and deadlines. The proposal system again is open right now. So it opened on February 4th. It closes to non-members on April 2nd, and it closes for members on April 9th. So if you think you're going to be running a little behind and aren't a member yet, you may want to become a member. That give you a week-long extension. But to access the proposal system, you click here. And the great thing about it is that you can clearly see the specific information about the conference theme for this year, and there's just very detailed information about the proposal system. And here you can kind of click to create a new username and password. And I guess, these are just some logistical things. But and then once, what I usually recommend, I don't know if you all do this as well, is just kind of putting everything in a Word document and kind of saving that Word document and then copying and pasting everything, just so that like you don't, who knows what can happen with technology. Apparently it's not perfect. So I recommend just copying and pasting things in so that you don't have to worry about losing a part of your abstract or your narrative or things like that. Is that something that you all do too?
Great point, Joe. I do know that the conference system is timed. I believe it's, Brenda, correct me if I'm wrong, 60 minutes or 2 hours, and it does not save your work. So if you're in there longer than what the allotted time is, then you would lose what you have input. So using a Word document to first, draft your proposal, make sure that everything is spelled correctly, grammatically correct, and then turn it over to the proposal system would probably be the best ideal.
And I would also say for someone who English is a second language, a lot of the proposals, not a lot, many of the proposals that we got, if they're not sufficiently fluent in English, it really makes it difficult to adequately assess the paper. So if you're English is a second language, have a English speaker review it before you submit.
Thank you. We do have another question about paper submissions. The question is, what happens if you have a paper accepted and are unable to complete your paper to the point it is presentable prior to the conference?
So yeah, that's what the situation we don't want you to be in. But things happen, things legitimately delay projects. And if you have to pull out of the conference, let us know as soon as possible, because that means that Lindsey and I need to figure out if we're going to, how we're going to get another paper on that panel. So it's really important that you let us know as soon as possible, or let Mary Kate know, let ARNOVA know. And, it does happen, but it's something you want to avoid. So put a lot of thought into that proposal before you submit it. If it's something you really, in your heart of hearts, know you can't finish in time, submit a poster.
Yeah, and I do believe, Brenda, right, that they are able to log into the submission system and edit their proposal anytime before the actual deadline comes about. So if you have submitted your proposal and you feel that you need to make changes, I do think that they can still do that, correct?
Let's let Mary Kate answer that one.
All right, we'll wait for Mary Kate's answer. And her answer is yes. So, yeah, thanks, Mary Kate. Yeah, and
Mary
again,
Kate is the one that has all the specific knowledge. We go straight to Mary Kate because she does it every year.
she brings great ARNOVA conference brilliance and expertise. So thank you, Mary Kate. And just, to the points about just deadlines too, you see that, again, the deadline is at 11:59 Eastern time. I know there are some people in the world, many of us, who just, tend to wait till that last hour. We don't want that to happen. We're not encouraging that happens, but, just recognizing it is Eastern time. So, yep. And also that deadline, it's kind of nice, like that if for some reason your paper is not accepted, to the point earlier, you'll have confirmation by June 29th, and then can make really the decision about whether or not you want to propose a poster, because that system opens on July 8th and doesn't close until August 15th. I think it's also just important to note too, Mary Kate wanted us to mention that they do accept minor changes, recognizing, like, if for some reason, you need to make a small change in the program, after the deadline, there is a change request submit form or change request form on the website that you can submit, recognizing, for instance, that somebody may, add an author to a paper, or may have a new affiliation at a new, institution. So that is something that we, is recognized as realistic, and we want to make sure to honor that as well. There's also a question that has come up around the change this year to the eligibility of applying to the Emerging Scholarly Award. The note here is that currently the first requirement is that scholars and practitioners in their first year of appointment in academic or practice positions. Under this requirement, it seems that a doctoral candidate is not eligible to apply. Holly, could you explain a little bit more about this description, because it appears to be a little confusing? I can pull that up too. Holly, are you there?
It looks like she's on mute.
Okay.
Holly, are you there? Yeah, she's on mute.
So maybe, yeah, so maybe what we can do is ask Holly offline and follow up via email.
Sure. Yeah, if we do not hear from Holly, we'll make sure to follow up via email. So if you just want to send us your email address or contact information, we'll make sure to get back to you, because that is a really great question, especially, you know, recognizing that an emerging scholar can mean lots of things. So we'll make sure to get back to you on that. And if we do hear from her before this webinar is over, I'll make sure to bring her in. But just, you know, we're kind of getting close to time here, and I just wanted to just ask our conference co-chairs for 2019 if they have just any final thoughts or suggestions, recommendations, or advice. You know, maybe things that you wish you would have known when you were putting together, you know, your first proposals, or just, you know, proposals as you were early scholars as well.
Yeah, I would say for me, the most important thing that I would recommend is not to wait until the last minute. So like I mentioned earlier, 1,000 words may seem like, you know, you can just write and write and write, but you have to have those 1,000 words broken up into your abstract, your introduction, your literature review. And so it really isn't that much once you start breaking it up into all of those sections. So you have to be succinct in what you present in a way that is compelling and shows the track chairs that your research or what you are proposing to present is something that will be well received at the conference. So don't wait until the last minute, because if you do, it probably won't turn out as convincing or compelling as you may think it will.
That's great advice. Great advice. And I just want to remind people to really think about those keywords and put them in the priority level, because those are going to be the primary thing that the track chairs use to put papers into panels. And I would encourage you, as you're thinking about if you want to do a panel, to really think about reaching out to that senior scholar. One of the things that's amazing about ARNOVA is the accessibility of people. You know, I think Lindsey and I are open, you know, please come up to people at the conference and introduce yourself. You know, we want it to be a welcoming environment, and we want to nurture emerging scholars, because this is a pretty amazing field of study. And we want to encourage participation in ARNOVA. So I hope you all will take this advice, and we want to see successful proposals.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely.
And we just have one last question, people, which is probably a good and positive way to end. Wanted to know when accepted, people will hear back about whether a proposal is accepted. And the answer there from Mary Kate is May 23rd, so by the end of May, you should know. And you will be contacted via email. So you'll see, you know, either way, you will be contacted via email about that. But yeah, we just wanted to, you know, thank everybody for just a really good conversation here today. I think we had some really great questions, got some really great answers, and we'll make sure to make sure that Holly provides the information about the and just clarification about the Emerging Scholars Award and the eligibility criteria. Holly, is there any chance you're here real quick? All right, I thought I'd try again, but we will get back to you soon. But Brenda and Lindsey, thank you again just for the time that you took to answer all these really great questions, and for our attendees for asking such great questions as well. So
Yeah, thank you for organizing.
Yeah, thanks. It was really, I think, important to organize a panel like this and a conversation. And this is not the end. You'll be hearing a lot more from ARNOVA about submitting proposals, and this conversation was recorded and will be posted on the ARNOVA website for members to view as well. So thank you, and we look forward to, I guess, seeing some great proposals coming through in the coming month.
Great. Thank you, Jodi, and all of you for attending.